What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? That question kept repeating in Emily Carter's mind like a broken record, looping louder each time the silence stretched around her. She didn't remember falling asleep, or waking up, or even how she got to this place, but she could feel it, something was terribly wrong. Darkness. Not the kind that creeps in when the lights are out, or the kind that hugs you gently in a warm, familiar room, but the kind that suffocates, that swallows sound and steals your breath. A black so total it erased the world. She reached out, fumbling through emptiness, searching for edges, light, anything. Nothing met her fingers but cool air and the sudden tremble of her own hand. "Where am I?" she tried to say, but the words came out hoarse, caught behind fear. A beeping sound nearby. Faint, rhythmic. Hospital. She could smell the sterile air, the lemon sanitizer sting that reminded her of the ER she once visited with her brother after he broke his collarbone. But that was years ago. Then, she remembered, the stage, the auditorium, the buzz of voices before her presentation. She had been presenting her prototype, the biometric scanner for vision rehabilitation, something she'd poured her whole life into. The screen had flashed, applause had rung in her ears, and she had felt a surge of pride, maybe even a little relief. Then it happened. A flash. A stabbing light behind her eyes. And then nothing. "Emily," a voice called out, muffled and distant like it was underwater. "Emily, can you hear me?" Another voice now, closer. A woman, calm, clinical. "She's coming out of sedation. Vitals are stable." She tried to speak, tried to form words, but they caught in her throat. It was then she heard herself say, "Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning." What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The words felt strange on her tongue, like a reflex, as if some old memory surfaced and took over. It wasn't the right time or place, but it was all she could say. The silence came back, dense and heavy. Her hands gripped the thin blanket draped over her legs. Her legs, could she move them? Yes. She shifted. Relief. She wasn't paralyzed. But the darkness didn't lift. She blinked hard. Still black. Her heartbeat picked up pace. "Why can't I see?" she croaked. A pair of fingers took her wrist gently, checking pulse. Another voice, male this time, assured her, "You're stable. We're running diagnostics. Your brain is functioning. We believe this is temporary." Temporary. The word danced between hope and dread. She wanted to believe it. "I was presenting," she whispered. "My project, we know," said the woman's voice again. "You collapsed at the conference. You've been unconscious for 12 hours. There was no trauma to the skull. But your visual cortex lit up in a way we've never seen before. We're consulting specialists." Her mind spun. Her project had focused on neurovisual regeneration, devices to help the visually impaired recover limited function. Irony? Tragedy? Was this cosmic punishment? Her eyes burned with tears she couldn't release. "Am I blind?" she asked finally. The pause in the room answered her. "Not long, but just long enough. We're doing everything we can," the voice said carefully. "There's something you should know. Neuralink, there's been a development." Emily's breath caught. Neuralink. Elon Musk startup. She'd been watching them for years, ever since their first animal trials. Now, suddenly, she was hearing that name in relation to her own crisis. "What kind of development?" she asked. The voice replied, "The FDA granted them breakthrough status. They're ready for human trials. And, they want you to be a candidate." The words didn't land at first. "You mean, me? They've seen your work. Your biometric prototype. Your condition, the way it presented, is unique. They think they can help. They're flying in a team now. Emily tried to sit up, dizzy and weak, her hands shaking. I don't understand. 1 minute I'm standing on stage, and now, this. We believe your condition may be neurodegenerative, likely genetic but triggered by environmental stress. Your scans are unusual, your visual cortex is highly active, even though you're not registering sight. That's why Neuralink is interested. You may be a bridge case. Emily lay back, stunned. The irony cut deep. She had spent years studying visual prosthetics, fighting for funding, working late into nights coding simulations, running lab tests. Her dream was to help others. Now, she might be the first. Somewhere behind the wall of shock, a flicker of curiosity stirred. Could it work? Could a brain-computer interface restore sight? Was she willing to become an experiment? Do I have a choice? She whispered. Yes, said the voice. It's entirely up to you. But if you choose to proceed, you'll be at the forefront of something revolutionary. It won't be easy. There are risks. Emily nodded slowly, knowing what came next would change her life forever. Maybe for the better. Maybe not. But staying in the dark, literally and figuratively, wasn't an option. She whispered, then I'll do it. Her fingers curled into the sheet. Fear still gripped her, but behind it, something else had started to stir. The tiniest pulse of resolve. Somewhere deep inside, a part of her refused to surrender. The door opened and closed. Footsteps. Emily, said another voice, this one familiar. Sam. Her brother. You're awake. Thank God. She felt his hands wrap around hers. She could hear the tears in his voice. They said you're going to try Neuralink. Are you sure? I have to, she said. If I don't, I might never see again. I'm here. I'll be with you. No matter what. That was all she needed. Somewhere in the blackness, a light sparked, not in her eyes, but her mind. A beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Before the blindness, before the hospital lights and whispered science fiction promises, there was a girl who believed the universe had a language of its own, and her name was Emily Carter. Born in a small town just outside Boulder, Colorado, Emily grew up surrounded by mountains that reached for the stars and a family that taught her to do the same. Her father, Glenn Carter, was a physics teacher with a passion for astronomy and an old telescope that he kept mounted on the back porch, angled at the heavens. Some of Emily's earliest memories were of lying on a sleeping bag under the August sky, her dad pointing at constellations and whispering, "That one's Lyra. Vega sits right there. And if you're ever lost, the stars will guide you home." Emily never forgot that. Her mom, Rachel, had a quieter strength, a nurse who knew how to keep calm when chaos knocked. She was the one who kissed scraped knees, stitched up fear with bedtime stories, and wrote little notes in Emily's lunchbox, "Remember who you are, dream big, the hard days make the brave days." But the most important person in Emily's orbit was her older brother Sam. Just 2 years her senior, he had a fearless smile and an unstoppable curiosity. They built forts together, broke bikes together, sneaked out to watch meteor showers, and swore they'd both do something that mattered. Emily idolized him. He taught her how to fix wires in her toy robot, how to argue with confidence, how to believe she could do anything if she refused to quit. When Emily was 10, her father took them to a science museum in Denver, and everything changed. There was a neuroscience exhibit on brainwave patterns, and Emily watched in awe as a child in front of her moved a ball across a platform with only their thoughts, electrodes capturing signals, translating them into motion. Her father knelt beside her and whispered, "That's the future, Em. That's where the world is headed." That night, she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, imagining a world where minds controlled machines, where thought created action, where impossible became possible. From that moment on, she was obsessed. Science fairs became her battlegrounds. She taught herself to code by the age of 12, built her first neural response model at 14, and landed a spot in a competitive engineering prep program at 16. But brilliance rarely arrives without shadows. In college, Emily's world shifted. She earned a scholarship to MIT and left Colorado behind, her heart both swollen with hope and sick with homesickness. Cambridge was fast, loud, and overwhelming. She drowned herself in coursework, pushing past fatigue, perfectionism coiled tight in her chest. Her first year, she failed her chemistry midterm, her first academic failure ever. She called her mom in tears, convinced she wasn't cut out for it. Her mom listened, then said simply, "Failure means you tried. And trying is where all great stories start." It stuck. But it wasn't just the classes that tested her. She fell in love for the first time, with a fellow engineering student named Leo. He was brilliant, sarcastic, and understood her like no one else. They would spend nights talking about AI ethics, robotics, and their shared dream to use technology for good. For a while, it felt like destiny. Until it didn't. By junior year, Leo had grown distant, consumed by his own work and resentful of Emily's success. When she received a research grant he'd also applied for, their relationship cracked. One night, after an argument laced with old insecurities and quiet accusations, he left. No goodbye. No closure. Just an empty seat in the lab and an ache that lasted for months. But heartbreak taught her something too, that her worth wasn't tied to anyone's validation. She threw herself back into her work, more determined than ever. By graduation, Emily had 2 published papers, a patent pending on her optic neural simulation model, and a job offer from a cutting-edge biotech startup in San Francisco. It felt like the beginning of something huge. Moving to the Bay Area was another reinvention. She found an apartment in Palo Alto, joined the fast-paced world of venture-backed dreams, and started leading a small team focused on brain-computer interface design for vision restoration. It was personal for her. She had met too many people who had lost their sight due to trauma or disease, and every time she heard their stories, she imagined what it would feel like to lose the very thing most people took for granted. She couldn't have known that one day it would happen to her. At the company, she became known for being sharp, intense, and a little reclusive. She rarely went out, kept her circle small, and often stayed late in the lab, tweaking code or running tests. But she wasn't alone. David, a designer who joined her team, quickly became a constant presence. He was different from Leo, quieter, steadier, the kind of person who showed up with coffee and didn't need to say much to make you feel seen. They started working late together, eating takeout at her desk, sharing stories about their families. Eventually, feelings deepened. David wasn't flashy, but he was dependable. When he kissed her for the first time in the glow of her office monitors, it felt safe. Real. But even real love isn't immune to stress. As her project neared a public demo, Emily became consumed by deadlines. She missed dates, skipped weekends, forgot to reply to texts. David tried to understand, but frustration simmered beneath the surface. Then came the headaches. Subtle at first, then sharp. Flashes of light. Letters blurring on screens. She dismissed them as stress. Until one night she collapsed at home, clutching her head as the world flickered. Hospital visits followed. Tests. Specialists. MRI scans that made her feel like a specimen, not a person. The diagnosis came quietly, an aggressive neurodegenerative condition affecting the optic nerve and visual cortex. Rare. No known cure. The room spun. She called her mom and couldn't speak. Just sobbed into the phone. Rachel flew out the next day. David was supportive at first, holding her hand, telling her they'd figure it out. But over time, something shifted. She could feel it in the way he hesitated before touching her, in the way he spoke in careful tones like she might break. One night she overheard him on the phone with his sister. "I don't know what to do. It's like she's disappearing." She didn't confront him. She just said goodbye. Told him it was better this way. He didn't fight. And just like that, he was gone. Only Sam remained. Sam, who dropped everything and flew in without being asked. Sam, who made her laugh even when she couldn't see his face. Sam, who reminded her who she was when the world turned black. And now, after all the years she had spent trying to help others regain their sight, she was blind herself, chosen as the first human candidate for Neuralink's new interface. The irony wasn't lost on her. It felt like some twisted cosmic joke. But Emily wasn't laughing. She was remembering her father's words, "If you're ever lost, the stars will guide you home." Only now, there were no stars. Just the dark. And the hope that somewhere beyond it, something new waited to be born. The diagnosis didn't just take Emily's vision, it unraveled her world one thread at a time, starting with the sense that her body had betrayed her. She had built her career on precision, logic, and control, and now the very tools she depended on, her eyes, her focus, her ability to move through space with certainty, had failed her. It wasn't just the blindness. It was the unraveling of everything she had believed to be permanent. The doctors had names for it, complex terms she could recite but couldn't accept. Neurological degeneration. Optic nerve atrophy. But none of it mattered in the face of the simple truth: she could no longer see. The first days were the worst. Every step was a guess. Every surface an obstacle. She knocked over glasses in the kitchen. Walked into walls. Burned her hand trying to make tea. She found herself reaching for her phone dozens of times a day, forgetting she couldn't read the screen. The device became a cruel symbol of what she'd lost. Her apartment, once minimal and efficient, now felt like a minefield of memories. She could still picture where everything was, but memory wasn't enough. She felt like a ghost in her own life, drifting through a world she could no longer navigate. Sam installed assistive tech, voice interfaces, tactile labels, a smart speaker that read her messages, but it didn't stop the shame that bloomed every time she asked for help. She hated the sound of her own voice when it shook. She hated the silence that filled the space where independence used to be. But more than anything, she hated the way people looked at her when she left the apartment. Or rather, the way they didn't. She couldn't see their faces, but she could feel the hesitation, the pity. Conversations felt colder, shorter. No one knew what to say. She felt invisible in a way she never had before, not because she couldn't see, but because the world didn't know how to see her anymore. Her work fell into limbo. The team at the startup tried to be supportive. There were flowers, messages, emails from colleagues she barely remembered, but none of it made her feel connected to what she'd lost. The lab was no longer hers. Her code sat untouched. Her prototype gathered dust. For weeks, she avoided everyone. Except Sam. He came by daily, brought groceries, sat with her through the long afternoons. Sometimes they didn't talk. Sometimes they just listened to music, letting silence settle around them like a second skin. It helped. Not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded her she wasn't entirely alone. And then the message came. A formal email from Neuralink, addressed directly to her. The subject line: Human Candidate Consideration, Neural Visual Cortex Interface. The message was clear. They had reviewed her case. They knew her research. They were extending an invitation to participate in their first FDA-approved human trial for a next-generation brain-computer interface designed to bypass damaged optical pathways and stimulate the visual cortex directly. It was experimental. Risky. Unprecedented. But potentially, if successful, it could restore partial sight. Emily read the message with her smart reader, hands trembling. She listened to it 3 times, then forwarded it to Sam. She didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, fingers tracing the edge of her bedsheet, her mind spinning with questions. Was she ready? Could she handle more disappointment? Was this science, or desperation? She thought about her prototype, the years she spent arguing for the ethics of enhancement, the idea that the body wasn't a boundary but a platform. And now she was being asked to live that theory. Not as a scientist. As a subject. Sam drove her to the Neuralink facility the next week. The building was sleek, all glass and angles, tucked into a quiet corner of Fremont. Inside, it felt more like a spaceship than a lab, sterile white walls, low humming lights, machines that whispered with electricity. She was greeted by Dr. Mariana Vargas, the lead neuroscientist on the project. Her voice was warm, direct, and carried the kind of confidence that made Emily feel like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake. They sat together in a conference room while Dr. Vargas explained the process. The implant would be placed behind the ear, with microelectrodes threading into the brain's visual cortex. The goal wasn't to restore traditional sight, but to translate data into patterns of light and motion that the brain could learn to interpret. It would be like teaching her brain a new language. You won't see the way you used to, Vargas said. At first, it may look like static, or shapes. But over time, your brain can adapt. We've seen it in animal models. This would be the first test in a human. Emily asked questions, every one she could think of. About safety, failure rates, reversibility. Dr. Vargas answered them all. Honestly. Transparently. And then she said, we chose you because you're uniquely qualified. Not just because of your condition, but because of your knowledge. You understand the system better than anyone. You won't just be a subject. You'll be a partner. That word stuck. Partner. It shifted something inside her. She wasn't just being helped. She was helping. Again. Contributing. Creating. That night, back in her apartment, she said yes. The process began immediately. Medical scans, cognitive tests, simulated training sessions using auditory models. Neuralink moved quickly, efficiently, wrapping her in a net of protocols and monitoring tools. It felt surreal. One day she was a woman reeling from loss, and the next she was on the front line of a technological revolution. But doubt didn't vanish. It lived under her skin, whispering questions she couldn't silence. What if it failed? What if it hurt? What if it made everything worse? Sam was her constant. Every step of the way. He joked when she needed laughter, got serious when she needed truth. He reminded her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was doing the thing anyway. The night before the procedure, they sat on the couch, listening to a playlist of songs from their childhood. Sam said, "Remember that night we got lost hiking at Estes Park?" She smiled. "You got us lost. Fair. But we found our way. Stars, remember?" "Yeah," she said softly. "Dad always said they'd guide us." "They still do," Sam said. "Even if you can't see them right now." She didn't cry, though her throat tightened. The next morning, she entered the surgical suite surrounded by a team of engineers and neurosurgeons. The room smelled of antiseptic and possibility. As they prepped her, she focused on her breathing. In. Out. Calm. Ready. She didn't know what would come next. But she knew this, she had spent her life reaching into the future. Now, the future was reaching back. The hum of the operating room was quieter than she expected. It wasn't the chaotic chorus she'd seen in medical dramas, all clanging trays and shouted instructions. It was calm, orderly, almost reverent. The kind of silence that made her feel like something sacred was about to happen. She lay on the table, her body blanketed under crisp linens, her head supported by a brace that cradled her skull like a fragile artifact. Electrodes traced her scalp in patterns she couldn't see, but could feel like soft tugs beneath her hair. A voice spoke above her. "Dr. Vargas. You're doing great, Emily. We've already placed the lead interface. We're beginning the implantation sequence now." Emily gave a slow nod. She couldn't move much, but her mind was sharp. They'd given her a mild sedative, not enough to knock her out completely, just enough to dull the edge. She wanted to be awake. She'd asked for it. She needed to know. This was her body, her mind, her decision. A soft hiss signaled the robotic surgical arm descending. The procedure was delicate, the kind of precision only automation could achieve. Tiny threads, thinner than human hair, were being woven into the folds of her visual cortex. Each filament would carry signals, electrical pulses that could simulate light, shapes, even movement. If everything worked as planned. If. That word had never felt heavier. Emily breathed through the fear, anchoring herself in the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. She thought about the first time she wrote code that actually worked, the way the screen lit up and her heart surged. This wasn't so different. The human brain was just another system. Complex, yes, but ultimately data-driven. Neuralink's technology translated visual information from external cameras into electrical impulses. These impulses were then delivered to specific regions of the brain through the implant's microfilaments, bypassing the damaged optic nerves entirely. It wasn't restoring sight. It was reinventing it. She remembered reading about similar concepts in her undergrad years: visual prosthetics, retinal implants, cortical stimulation. They'd all been clunky, inconsistent, sometimes even dangerous. But Neuralink had something none of those systems had: machine learning algorithms that evolved in real time, adapting to each user's neural map like a custom-fit interface. If it worked, Emily wouldn't just be able to see again. She'd be able to train her brain to interpret artificial vision. She might one day perceive the world in a way no human ever had. The thought made her dizzy. The room faded into sensation. A faint pressure behind her ear. A cold patch of skin where the implant would rest. The robotic arm retreated. A second voice confirmed connection. A third checked readings. Then silence again. Dr. Vargas spoke into her headset. "Implant is secured. Systems online. You're still stable. We're going to begin the calibration phase in 24 hours, once your brain has had time to rest." Emily gave a tiny nod. It was done. The device was inside her. She didn't feel different. Not yet. But the shift had already begun. The next day, she was moved to a private observation room. The walls were glass on one side, opening into the lab where Neuralink technicians monitored her data. She couldn't see it, but she could feel the energy: people moving, screens flickering, the hum of servers processing signals from her brain. A nurse helped her sit up, adjusting the bed so she could lean back comfortably. The device behind her ear was bandaged, but she could feel its presence, a small ridge under the skin. Dr. Vargas entered, tablet in hand. "Good morning. How do you feel?" "Like a machine," Emily said. Vargas smiled. "You're not a machine. You're the operator. That interface is listening to you now. It's already collecting patterns. The more we train it, the better it gets." Emily took a deep breath. "I'm ready." "Good. Today's session is about recognition. We'll start small. Simple shapes. You'll hear a tone. If your brain receives the signal, tell me what you experience." Emily nodded. An assistant placed a lightweight headset over her ears and gently positioned a small, forward-facing camera system just above her temples. It was external for now, a temporary input source feeding visual data directly into the implant. In time, she'd learn to use it like a second pair of eyes. Vargas tapped the tablet. Okay. First signal coming through. A soft chime rang in Emily's ears. Then something strange happened. Her mind jolted, like someone had flipped a switch in the back of her skull. She gasped. I see something. Describe it. It's not sight. Not like before. It's more like light. A pulse. Like static, but moving. Center left. Good. That's the square. Next. Another chime. This time the pulse shifted. It was longer, deeper, and seemed to come from above. Triangle, she said. I think it's a triangle. Correct. One more. The third signal was softer. Almost a whisper in her mind. But it bloomed outward, gently, like a circle expanding from within. A ring, she whispered. Yes, Vargas said. That's very good. Emily slumped back, her heart pounding. It feels like dreaming with your eyes open. That's normal. Your brain is interpreting raw electrical data. Right now, it's confusing. But it will start to form patterns. Familiar ones. With time, you'll be able to assign meaning. Then, we'll move to colors, motion, spatial depth. Emily laughed softly. That's going to be a long road. Yes, Vargas said. But you're walking it already. Over the next week, Emily's sessions grew more complex. She began to associate signals with real-world stimuli. She could see, when someone moved in front of her, more of a distortion than a shape, but clear enough to know someone was there. She recognized light intensity, could tell when a room was bright or dim. The most surreal moment came when she identified a shadow, Sam stepping into her field of view. She knew it was him. Not from memory, not from intuition, but from a shifting in the light pattern that her brain recognized as familiar. She wept after that session. Not out of sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that the world was still there. That even in fragments, in pulses and shapes and whispered signals, the world hadn't abandoned her. She was relearning it. Day by day. On the 8th day, she asked to walk outside. The team was hesitant. She still needed guidance, assistance. But she insisted. She needed to feel the sun. Sam walked beside her, his arm under hers, careful but loose, letting her set the pace. The sidewalk outside the Neuralink facility was wide, flanked by rows of eucalyptus trees. She couldn't see them, not really, but she sensed movement, shadows flickering, a rhythm of brightness and darkness. She turned her face upward. The sun was there. She couldn't see it, but she felt its shape, like a glowing presence pressing gently on the inside of her skull. She laughed, giddy. I think I see the sky. Sam smiled. That's a start. It's like a dream I didn't know I missed. We'll go as far as you want. Just a little farther, she said. Just a little more light. The weeks that followed became a rhythm of transformation, clinical and emotional, technological and deeply human. Emily's days began early with interface calibration sessions, her brain slowly learning the visual language of pulses and patterns, while her nights were filled with dreams that blurred memory and invention. It wasn't vision in the traditional sense, not yet, and maybe never would be, but what she experienced was its own kind of clarity, a perception unlike anything she'd known before. She could sense space, brightness, direction. She could differentiate between stillness and motion, between vertical lines and rounded edges. Each day, she added another shape, another layer of interpretation. The Neuralink engineers called it neural vision, and as strange as it sounded, it began to feel like something real. The training exercises grew more advanced. Emily would sit in a controlled room filled with objects arranged at varying depths and orientations, a cup, a chair, a plant, a sphere on a pedestal. Through her new interface, she could feel their presence as waves of sensation, each object with a different pulse signature. When she correctly identified them, the team erupted in quiet cheers, but the celebration wasn't about external approval. It was about ownership. She was beginning to map the world again, and this time it was hers to define. The most astonishing breakthrough came when they introduced facial detection. Using advanced facial recognition algorithms, the camera system fed simplified spatial data of human features directly into her neural interface. For the first time since losing her sight, Emily could recognize the human face, not in detail, not in color or exact expression, but in structure. A new sensation flooded her system, complex, overwhelming, beautiful. She was reintroduced to Sam's face through light. Not the freckles or the curve of his smile, but the essential map of him, the way his presence shifted the space, the way his outline differed from everyone else's. She knew it was him. Knew it with a certainty that made her throat tighten. "It's you," she said softly during the trial. "You're right in front of me." Sam exhaled, his voice cracking. "Yeah. I'm here, Em. Always." That night, alone in her room, she lay awake in the dark, not the oppressive black that had swallowed her weeks ago, but a quiet dark, full of soft echoes and possibilities. She listened to the device behind her ear hum faintly with power, like a whisper from another world. She thought about what it meant to be the first. Not just the first human trial, but the first person to experience the world this way, to relearn how to see without eyes, to feel faces through electricity, to witness the rebirth of perception through machines and willpower. The pressure was immense. The media had caught on. Whispers turned into headlines. Neuralink's first human subject experiencing sensory breakthroughs. Revolution in vision, can the blind see through the brain? Reporters started camping outside the facility. Emily declined interviews. She wasn't ready to be a symbol. Not yet. She was still fragile, still adjusting to a world that didn't come with light switches. She still had moments of fear, panic, even. Like when her mind misinterpreted a signal and she walked into a wall, or when the system lagged and her spatial awareness collapsed. Each time, doubt crept in like a fog. Was this real progress or just a temporary illusion? Was her brain truly adapting, or was it tricking itself into believing it could? Dr. Vargas stayed close. She monitored Emily's mental state as closely as her neurological data. They talked often, not just about science, but about fear, fatigue, identity. "You're not just adapting to the interface," Vargas told her one day. "You're becoming something new. And that's always disorienting." "You make it sound like evolution," Emily said. "It is," Vargas replied. "But evolution hurts. Especially when you're the first." Emily found herself clinging to small victories. One morning, she reached for her coffee and didn't knock it over. Another time, she walked 10 feet unaided and stopped within inches of the wall. She started recognizing which staff members entered the room, not by voice, but by the shape of their neural presence. She began to detect the subtle flicker of a television screen before hearing its sound. These moments were small. But they added up. One afternoon, she visited the outdoor garden built for recovery patients, a quiet space filled with gravel paths and sculpted plants. The sun was high, and the brightness of the sky registered through the neural patterns like a wash of energy over her brain. She sat on a bench and tilted her face upward. For a second, she imagined she could see again, not just interpret, but truly see. A flicker. A shadow. She blinked. The interface pulsed gently. Something was different. She turned her head. Movement to the left. Someone was walking toward her. She focused hard. Not just the spatial cue, but something more, contrast. A sharper outline. "Sam," she called out. No answer. But it wasn't Sam. The person approached, stopped in front of her. Their presence felt unfamiliar, but distinct. Tall. Narrow shoulders. "Emily Carter, a voice asked. Yes. I'm Dr. Renfield, from the FDA's Human Trial Oversight Committee. I'd like to ask you a few questions, off the record, if that's all right. She nodded slowly, uncertain. Sure. Renfield sat beside her. How are you feeling? Truly. She paused. Like I'm waking up, piece by piece. Like I'm building something out of fragments. Are you afraid? He asked. Sometimes. Do you believe this should continue? That question was heavier than the others. She thought about it carefully. Yes, she said finally. Because I'm seeing something I didn't think I ever would again. And if that's possible, then everything changes. He nodded, stood up, and left without another word. The encounter shook her. Later that night, Dr. Vargas admitted they'd had pressure from the committee. Concerns about the pace, the ethics, the long-term risks. They're nervous because you're succeeding, she said. They didn't expect the results to come this fast. But you're rewriting the rules in real time. Emily laughed bitterly. That's what they're afraid of. Change always scares people, Vargas replied. But you're not just part of change. You are the change. That phrase stuck with her. The change. It echoed in her mind as she lay awake, the neural interface humming, the new vision flickering in pulses behind her closed eyes. She wasn't just healing. She was becoming. The next day, a new test. Full motion capture. Objects moving in and out of frame. Her task was to identify direction, left to right, top to bottom, fast versus slow. The pulses came quicker now, sharper, more layered. She felt her brain clicking into rhythm, decoding faster, smoother. At one point, she shouted without thinking, ball. Left. Fast. The room erupted in cheers. She had seen it. Not just felt it. Not guessed. Seen. It wasn't perfect. Not close. But it was something. Later that evening, as she stood alone in front of the mirror in her room, she stared at her reflection, not with eyes, but with awareness. The outline was there. The shape. The energy. She lifted her hand, traced the edge of her face. She smiled. For the first time in weeks, she smiled without sadness. She wasn't broken. She wasn't lost. She was learning to see herself again. And that was everything. The headlines hit harder than she expected. It started with a leak. Someone inside the Neuralink medical team or possibly a regulatory liaison had given a statement to the press about Emily's trial. By the time she woke up that morning, her name was trending nationally. First human subject reports sight-like signals from Neuralink implant. Blind engineer rewiring her brain, literally. Emily Carter, the woman who might see again. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands gripping the sheets, the device behind her ear buzzing faintly with morning activation, while Sam read her the articles out loud. She tried to stay calm, tried to breathe through the shock of it all. But something about hearing her name in that context, spoken by strangers speculating about her brain, her body, her life, it pierced through her like static. This wasn't how she had wanted the world to find out. They weren't supposed to publish anything, she muttered. We agreed on privacy. On protecting the trial until we knew it was stable. Sam sat across from her, eyes flicking nervously over his phone. They're running with it anyway. They're calling you a pioneer, Em. They're saying this could be the biggest breakthrough in neural medicine since the cochlear implant. She let out a long breath. It doesn't feel like that. I know, he said. But it is. The rest of the day was chaos. Dr. Vargas called an emergency meeting with her team, followed by a video call with Neuralink's PR team and lawyers. The company scrambled to get ahead of the story, releasing an official statement confirming that a voluntary human trial was underway and that early results were encouraging but preliminary. They didn't mention Emily by name, but the damage was already done. Her inbox flooded. Requests from media outlets, invitations from medical conferences, even a message from a blind children's foundation asking her to be a speaker at their next gala. She felt the walls closing in. All she had wanted, since the day she said yes to the trial, was the chance to heal quietly, to rediscover her life one flicker at a time. Now it felt like she was being shoved onto a global stage, a living symbol of technological hope. She wasn't sure she could carry that weight. That night, she paced her room. The interface was off for once, disconnected for rest. The world was dark and silent, and she welcomed it. No flashes, no stimuli, no machine interpreting reality. Just her and her thoughts. Sam found her standing by the window, hands resting on the cool glass. "I feel like I'm being turned into a product," she said softly. "I wanted to do this for myself. But now I feel like a mascot for something I don't even fully understand yet." "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for," he said. "They can't force you to be their spokesperson. Not Neuralink. Not the media. You own your story." She turned toward him. "But do I? I can't control how they talk about me. I can't stop people from using my name, my progress, to sell their idea of the future. I didn't ask to be anyone's miracle." Sam nodded. "Then tell them that. Be honest. Speak on your terms." She thought about it all night. In the morning, she sent a single email to Dr. Vargas. It read, "I'll talk. But only if I can say what I want, in my own way. I'm not a miracle. I'm a person learning to live again." The following week, Neuralink arranged a controlled interview with a trusted journalist from a medical science journal, someone known for integrity and technical reporting, not tabloid sensationalism. The interview would be closed, pre-recorded, and released with Emily's full approval. On the day of filming, she wore a simple black sweater and jeans. No makeup. No pretense. Just herself, the interface in place behind her ear, the camera system mounted discreetly on a pair of modified glasses. She sat down in the studio, lights warm on her skin, and waited for the first question. "Emily, what does it feel like, to see again?" She paused. "It doesn't feel like seeing. Not in the way I remember it. It's more like, sensing the world through a different frequency. I don't see colors or faces in detail. But I can feel presence. I can track movement. I know when someone's looking at me. And sometimes, when the light is just right, it feels like the sky opens up. Like the world is whispering again." The interviewer leaned forward. "You're a neural engineer. How do you interpret this experience from a scientific perspective?" Emily smiled faintly. "From a science point of view, my brain is adapting to synthetic stimuli. It's interpreting electrical patterns delivered directly to my visual cortex and translating them into spatial understanding. But from a human perspective, it feels like getting back a piece of myself. Not perfectly. Not all at once. But slowly, like light returning after a long storm." The final question was the hardest. "Do you think this will change the world?" She looked down for a moment, then back toward the lens. "I think it already has. But not because of me. Because of the possibility. We've spent so long thinking of disability as limitation. But what if it's just another variation of being human? What if the tools we build, when guided by empathy and ethics, can give people new ways to connect with the world? This isn't about restoring what was lost. It's about expanding what's possible." The interview went viral. Millions of views within days. The scientific community responded with cautious optimism, while advocacy groups called it a potential revolution. But what mattered most to Emily were the letters, hundreds of them, sent to her email, to the lab, to her family. Letters from mothers of blind children. From veterans who lost vision in combat. From people afraid, broken, tired, and suddenly, a little more hopeful. One letter, handwritten and mailed in a soft blue envelope, read simply, "I haven't left my apartment in 3 years. Yesterday I did. Because I read about you." She read that one 3 times. The trial continued. The updates to her neural interface were steady and deliberate. New software patches allowed for sharper object detection, faster input processing, more nuanced shape definition. Her range of perception expanded. The sky wasn't just brightness now. It had gradients. Subtle shifts that let her differentiate cloud cover from clear blue. Indoors, she could tell when a room had windows even without feeling the breeze. She could sense plant life from artificial walls, and metal from wood. She began walking longer distances unaided, still cautious, but with growing confidence. One afternoon, she and Sam visited the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. It was a test, not just of her interface, but of her emotional readiness. Art had always mattered to her, even when science consumed her attention. They walked slowly through the exhibit halls. The colors were still beyond her, but the shapes, the contrasts, the energy radiating from certain installations, it was there. Abstract pieces made her brain light up in unfamiliar ways. At one point, she stopped in front of a sculpture, an angular, spiraling piece made of light and shadow. She turned toward Sam. "I don't know what this looks like," she whispered. "But it feels beautiful." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "It is." That evening, on the ride home, she received a call from Dr. Vargas. "Emily," she said, voice controlled but vibrating with something new. "The FDA just granted us full breakthrough device status. Neuralink's visual restoration program is officially greenlit for the next phase. And we want you to lead the design team for user experience." Emily blinked, stunned. "You want me to help build it?" "We want you to shape it. Who better to define the future than the first person to live it?" She couldn't speak. She just pressed a hand to the device behind her ear and let herself cry. Not because she was sad. But because, for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't just part of a story. She was writing it. The responsibility of leading the user experience team felt like a tidal wave crashing over Emily, overwhelming and exhilarating all at once. The breakthrough status from the FDA wasn't just a green light, it was a mandate to scale, to push beyond the boundaries of what had already been achieved, and to do so while balancing hope with caution. She understood that this wasn't merely about restoring vision for herself or others like her, it was about redefining what human perception could be. She was acutely aware of the stakes, the patients who would entrust their futures to this technology, the scientists who had dedicated years of research, and the countless skeptics ready to pounce at any sign of failure. Emily dove into the work, joining a multidisciplinary team that included neurologists, software engineers, designers, ethicists, and even philosophers. They gathered in Neuralink's Innovation Hub, a sleek, sunlit space filled with whiteboards scribbled with complex diagrams and quotes about human resilience. The team was tasked with answering an enormous question: how do you design technology that not only interfaces with the brain but also respects the deep emotional and psychological needs of its users? Emily insisted on something the company hadn't anticipated: empathy sessions. Before writing a single line of code or calibrating another implant, the team sat with people who were blind or visually impaired, listening intently to their stories, fears, and hopes. These sessions were raw and sometimes heartbreaking. A retired firefighter spoke about the moment he lost his sight and with it, his sense of identity. A mother described the frustration of watching her daughter navigate a world that seemed designed to exclude her. Emily realized that technology was only half the battle, the other half was about trust, acceptance, and adaptation. She introduced a new mantra to the team: see the person, not just the blindness. The engineering challenges were formidable. They had to improve the Neuralink implant's resolution without increasing its size, maintain battery life, and create adaptive algorithms that could learn and evolve with each user's unique neural patterns. They worked around the clock, fueled by pizza, coffee, and the occasional nervous laughter. Yet the greatest hurdle wasn't technical, it was the interface itself. While Emily's brain was beginning to decode electrical signals as vision, the experience was still alien and sometimes exhausting. The neural cortex wasn't designed to interpret digital data, and overstimulation could lead to migraines, confusion, or emotional fatigue. The team had to develop customizable settings that allowed users to adjust sensitivity, frequency, and input complexity, a feature Emily demanded after struggling with sensory overload herself. One evening, after a particularly grueling test session, Emily sat with Sam on the roof of their apartment building, staring at the city lights shimmering in the distance. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked quietly. "About the future? About what this all means?" Sam squeezed her hand. "Every day. But I also believe in you. In what you're building. You're not just creating a tool, you're opening doors." She nodded, staring out at the horizon where darkness and light mingled. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm ready to be the face of that change. What if I fail? What if this technology harms more than it helps?" Sam turned to look at her, eyes steady. "Then you fail with grace. You learn. You keep going. Because no change worth making is ever easy." That reassurance was both balm and challenge. Emily knew the path ahead was uncertain, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs, but also that she couldn't walk it alone. The media frenzy had subsided slightly but never disappeared. Neuralink's public relations team carefully curated updates, balancing optimism with caution. Emily's interview had humanized the project, but it had also made her a lightning rod for criticism. Some argued that the risks were too high, the technology untested. Others worried about the ethical implications of brain-machine interfaces, fearing loss of autonomy or unforeseen psychological effects. Emily welcomed the debate. Transparency, she believed, was essential. She agreed to participate in a panel discussion hosted by a prominent medical ethics institute. The event was broadcast live, and the questions were tough. "Ms. Carter, how do you address concerns that Neuralink's technology could be misused for surveillance or control? How do you ensure informed consent when the technology alters brain function? What safeguards are in place to protect patients' privacy and data?" Emily responded honestly, acknowledging the risks and emphasizing the company's commitment to ethical standards. She highlighted the importance of continuous monitoring and patient feedback, and the need for societal conversations about the boundaries of such technologies. The audience was engaged, the discussion intense but respectful. Afterward, several advocacy groups reached out, requesting collaborations to ensure diverse patient voices were included in future trials. The sense of responsibility weighed heavily on Emily. Every improvement, every iteration, needed to honor the lived experiences of those it aimed to help. One afternoon, during a routine calibration, the team noticed an unexpected spike in Emily's neural activity. At first, it was alarming. Was the device malfunctioning? But further analysis revealed something extraordinary. Her brain was not only adapting to the sensory input but beginning to predict patterns before the stimuli occurred, essentially anticipating movement and shape changes. This predictive coding was a breakthrough. It meant that over time, the implant could become more intuitive, less reliant on raw data streams, and more aligned with natural perception. Emily's brain was not just receiving information, it was learning to interpret and fill in gaps, much like sighted brains do. The implications were staggering. The team raced to refine algorithms that could harness this predictive ability, potentially enabling faster, clearer visual experiences for future users. At home, Emily's world began to open in subtle but profound ways. She could navigate familiar environments with increasing ease, recognizing the layout of rooms, the position of furniture, the approach of visitors. Her relationship with Sam deepened in ways that transcended words. He became her eyes, her guide, and sometimes her anchor when sensory overload overwhelmed her. There were nights when the signals became jumbled, her brain fatigued by the influx of new stimuli. During those moments, she felt raw and vulnerable, reminded that this was still an experiment, a leap into the unknown. But there were also moments of pure joy, a glimpse of the sunrise's shape through the window, the outline of a dog wagging its tail, the way light and shadow danced on the sidewalk. Each sensation was a victory. Emily's story began to attract a new kind of attention, not just from scientists or journalists, but from artists, philosophers, and thinkers fascinated by the merging of biology and technology. She was invited to speak at a symposium on the future of human augmentation, where she shared her experiences and reflections on identity, perception, and what it means to be human. "This technology challenges us to rethink our assumptions," she told the audience. "It invites us to consider that our senses are not fixed, but fluid, adaptable. That reality itself can be shaped by the tools we create and the minds that wield them. But with that power comes responsibility, to ensure these advances serve humanity's best interests, respecting dignity, autonomy, and diversity." The speech was met with a standing ovation, and afterward, Emily was approached by a young neuroscientist who shared her vision for accessible, inclusive technology. They discussed potential collaborations and new directions for research. Meanwhile, Neuralink prepared for the next phase of clinical trials, expanding enrollment to include participants with varying degrees of visual impairment. Emily was appointed as a mentor for the new subjects, offering guidance and support through the daunting process of implantation and adaptation. She approached this role with humility and determination, understanding firsthand the fears and hopes that accompanied the journey. The team developed virtual reality training modules to help participants acclimate, integrating feedback from Emily and others to improve comfort and usability. Despite progress, challenges persisted. Some patients struggled with emotional adjustment, grappling with the dissonance between their memories of sight and the novel sensations from the implant. Others experienced physical side effects or device complications requiring intervention. Each setback was a reminder that the path to innovation was never linear. Emily remained a steadfast advocate for transparency and patient-centered care, pushing Neuralink to prioritize long-term support and mental health resources alongside technological advancements. One evening, Sam surprised her with tickets to a concert by a local symphony orchestra. Music had always been a source of comfort for her, a bridge to emotion beyond words or sight. They sat in the darkened hall, the first notes swelling around them. Emily closed her eyes and focused on the vibrations, the rhythms resonating through her body. Though she couldn't see the musicians, she felt connected, to the music, to the moment, to life itself. As the final movement faded, she squeezed Sam's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "For being here. For helping me see in ways I never imagined." The journey was far from over, but Emily knew she was no longer alone in the dark. Together with her team, her loved ones, and the growing community of patients and advocates, she was helping to build a future where technology could illuminate not just the world around them, but the boundless potential within each human mind. Months passed and Neuralink's visual restoration program began to evolve from a fledgling experiment into a fully fledged medical initiative. Emily found herself at the heart of a growing movement, one that bridged science, technology, and human stories in ways she had never imagined possible. The once sterile lab spaces were now filled with new faces, patients, engineers, therapists, all brought together by the hope that this device could change lives. The trial's expansion meant that Emily spent less time alone with her thoughts and more time mentoring others who were undergoing implantation and adjustment. Each new participant brought a unique story: children born blind, adults who had lost vision in accidents, veterans, and elderly patients. She listened to their hopes and fears, reminding herself daily of the profound responsibility she carried as both a patient and a guide. One of the most challenging cases was Marcus, a former athlete who had lost his sight in a car accident 5 years earlier. His determination to regain any semblance of vision was inspiring, but his frustration with the slow adaptation process was palpable. Marcus confided in Emily during a session. "I trained my body to push limits all my life," he said, voice low and strained. "But now, I feel trapped in this darkness that no muscle can break through." Emily understood that feeling deeply. She shared her own struggles, the days when the implant signals felt like static, the emotional weight of uncertainty, the fear that she might never see clearly again. Together, they worked on strategies to retrain their brains to interpret the new sensory data, focusing on patience and small victories. Meanwhile, Neuralink's engineers continued refining the technology. New software updates introduced advanced pattern recognition and adaptive learning algorithms, enabling the implant to tailor stimulation patterns to each user's neural responses. This customization dramatically improved clarity and reduced sensory fatigue. Emily spearheaded a user feedback program that collected real-time data from patients through wearable devices and mobile apps, feeding insights back to the development team. The integration of this continuous loop allowed for rapid iteration and more personalized care. Despite these technological leaps, emotional challenges persisted. Some patients experienced moments of disorientation or anxiety, struggling to reconcile the artificial perceptions with their memories and expectations. Neuralink partnered with psychologists and occupational therapists to create support programs addressing these mental health needs. Emily advocated fiercely for these resources, believing that healing the mind was just as critical as healing the eyes. One evening, after a long day of consultations, Emily sat with Sam in their living room, the quiet hum of the implant activation in the background. "Sometimes I feel like I'm a bridge between two worlds," she said softly. "Between the blindness I lived with and this new way of sensing the world. It's exhilarating but also isolating." Sam nodded. "You're not alone. You're building a community. You're helping others find their way." Her gaze softened. "I want to believe that. But I still worry about what happens if this all falls apart, if the tech fails, or worse, if it harms someone." "And that's why you're the right person for this," he replied. "Because you don't just see the possibilities. You see the risks. And you fight for the people who depend on this." The weight of leadership was heavy, but the sense of purpose stronger. Emily's journey became intertwined with the lives of the people she helped. During a follow-up session with Marcus, she witnessed a breakthrough moment. After weeks of incremental progress, Marcus was able to identify the shapes of objects on a table, his hand reaching out confidently, fingers brushing over a cup, a pen, a pair of glasses. "It's like learning to read again," he said, eyes bright despite the darkness behind them. "Slow, frustrating, but so rewarding when the letters finally make sense." Emily smiled, feeling a surge of hope. These small triumphs validated years of hard work and sacrifice. Neuralink's leadership announced plans to expand the trial internationally, recognizing the global potential of the technology. Emily was invited to consult on cultural considerations and patient care practices in different regions. She traveled to meet with doctors and patients in Europe and Asia, learning about diverse experiences of blindness and accessibility challenges. These trips broadened her perspective, deepening her commitment to creating technology that was inclusive and adaptable across different contexts. In one poignant visit to a rehabilitation center in Tokyo, Emily met Hannah, a young woman born blind who expressed a deep yearning to experience visual art and nature. Hannah's enthusiasm and resilience touched Emily profoundly. They spent hours discussing how technology might unlock new ways for people like Hannah to perceive the world beyond traditional senses. Back home, Emily's work extended into advocacy. She collaborated with disability rights organizations to ensure that Neuralink's technology would be accessible and affordable, resisting pressures to commercialize it exclusively for wealthy patients. She spoke publicly about the ethical imperatives of equity, transparency, and patient empowerment. Neuralink responded by launching scholarship programs and sliding-scale payment options for trial participants and future users. The social impact of the project grew as stories like Emily's inspired others to imagine a future where disability was not a limitation but a different mode of being. Yet beneath the progress, there were moments of doubt and tension. Neuralink faced regulatory hurdles as agencies scrutinized long-term safety data. Skeptics in the scientific community demanded more evidence and cautioned against premature optimism. Emily found herself navigating a complex landscape of hope, skepticism, and expectation. One evening, after a heated internal meeting, she confided in Sam. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm pushing too hard. If the pressure to succeed is blinding us to the risks." He reached for her hand. "But you're the one grounding them in reality. You remind them that this is about people, not just technology." She took a deep breath, feeling both the burden and the blessing of her role. As the trial moved into its next phase, Emily prepared to receive an upgraded implant designed to enhance depth perception and color differentiation, features previously unattainable. The surgery was scheduled for early spring, and the anticipation was both thrilling and terrifying. She spent the weeks leading up to it journaling her thoughts, preparing mentally for the new sensory experiences and potential setbacks. On the day of the procedure, surrounded by her medical team and Sam, Emily felt a calm determination. The surgery was longer and more complex than the first, but when she awoke, the implant hummed gently, signaling activation. Over the next days, new patterns emerged in her perception, shapes became more defined, subtle hues hinted at colors she hadn't sensed before. It was overwhelming, sometimes painful, but undeniably progress. She spent hours practicing with virtual reality simulations, learning to interpret the enriched data streams and calibrate her responses. Through it all, she remained a beacon of resilience and hope, inspiring others in the trial to persevere. Emily's journey was no longer just about her own vision, it was about the collective vision of a future where technology and humanity merged to overcome limitations and expand possibilities. The world was watching, and she was ready to lead the way. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emily's progress with the upgraded Neuralink implant sparked a surge of excitement within the team and among the patients in the trial. The added depth perception and hints of color gave users an unprecedented glimpse into a world that had been completely inaccessible before. Yet, alongside this newfound promise, new challenges emerged, testing the resilience of both Emily and the Neuralink team. The enhanced sensory input, while breathtaking, brought an influx of complex neural signals that sometimes overwhelmed the brain's processing capacity. Emily found herself navigating an emotional roller coaster, from awe at the vividness of new impressions to moments of frustration and fatigue. She spent long evenings working with cognitive therapists to develop mental strategies to manage sensory overload, learning to pace herself and embrace patience as an essential part of healing. Meanwhile, Neuralink engineers wrestled with the technical demands of balancing signal richness and user comfort. Every update required delicate calibration, too little stimulation, and users wouldn't benefit, too much, and the risk of adverse effects rose. Emily was deeply involved in testing each iteration, her feedback critical in tuning the device's parameters to individual needs. The trial's expansion brought diverse participants with varying degrees of blindness and neurological differences. This variability underscored the complexity of creating a one-size-fits-all solution. For some, the implant delivered almost immediate improvements, for others, the adaptation process was slower and fraught with setbacks. Neuralink's patient care model evolved to include personalized coaching, peer support groups, and immersive rehabilitation programs combining virtual reality, music therapy, and physical therapy. Emily often led group sessions, sharing her story openly to encourage participants struggling with discouragement. "We're all learning together," she reminded them. "Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory." The growing community created a supportive network, breaking the isolation many blind people had experienced. Public interest intensified as more success stories emerged. Media outlets featured interviews and documentaries highlighting not only the technology's potential but also the human stories at its core. Emily became a recognizable figure, celebrated for her candidness and courage. However, fame brought its own pressures. Some critics accused Neuralink of overstating the technology's capabilities, warning that hope might outpace reality. Others raised ethical questions about the long-term consequences of brain implants, privacy concerns, and potential socio-economic divides in access to the technology. Emily faced these criticisms head-on, advocating for transparency and ongoing research. She emphasized that Neuralink's mission was to empower, not to exploit, and stressed the company's commitment to equitable access and robust safety protocols. One evening, following a public forum on neuroethics, Emily met with Dr. Patel, a leading bioethicist who had challenged Neuralink's approach during the discussion. Their conversation was intense but respectful, centering on the balance between innovation and caution. Dr. Patel expressed concerns about the implications of altering brain function and the potential for unintended psychological effects. Emily acknowledged these risks but pointed to the rigorous monitoring and patient feedback mechanisms Neuralink had implemented. "We're not playing with fate," she said firmly. "We're listening, learning, and adapting. The people we serve are partners in this journey." The dialogue sparked a series of collaborations between Neuralink and independent ethics committees, aiming to establish guidelines that could serve as a model for future neurotechnology development worldwide. On the home front, Emily's relationship with Sam continued to deepen amidst the whirlwind of her professional life. Sam's unwavering support was a steady anchor, helping her navigate the emotional highs and lows. They found solace in quiet moments, early morning coffee on the balcony, walks in the park, shared meals where talk turned from technical jargon to dreams and fears. Sam also became an advocate, speaking at community events about the importance of empathy and patience in supporting loved ones facing neurological challenges. As spring melted into summer, Neuralink prepared for the next major milestone, long-term implantation trials aimed at assessing the device's durability, safety, and impact on brain plasticity. Emily volunteered to be among the first participants, fully aware of the unknowns but driven by the possibility of helping refine the technology for future generations. The trial introduced cutting-edge monitoring tools that tracked brain activity and implant performance in real time, alerting clinicians to any anomalies. Participants received regular psychological evaluations to detect subtle cognitive or emotional changes. Emily approached this phase with cautious optimism, determined to contribute as much data and insight as possible. She also embraced a new role as a public educator, hosting webinars and workshops to prepare prospective participants and their families. Her openness helped demystify the process and alleviate fears, fostering trust in the technology and its promise. Unexpectedly, the trial brought a personal challenge. Emily began experiencing brief episodes of dizziness and blurred vision, symptoms that unsettled both her and the medical team. Intensive diagnostics ruled out implant malfunction, but the episodes hinted at the brain's ongoing adjustment to the new sensory input. Emily was advised to reduce stimulation levels temporarily and undergo additional therapy to manage symptoms. This setback was a stark reminder of the delicate balance between progress and risk inherent in pioneering work. Despite frustration, Emily refused to let discouragement take hold. She documented her experiences meticulously, contributing valuable data that informed treatment protocols and device improvements. Her transparency inspired others to persevere through difficulties, reinforcing the community's resilience. Meanwhile, Neuralink's leadership intensified efforts to expand accessibility, partnering with insurance companies and government programs to subsidize implantation and rehabilitation costs. Emily advocated for policy changes to recognize neural implants as medically necessary devices, paving the way for broader coverage and support. The intersection of technology and healthcare policy became a new frontier, requiring negotiation, education, and advocacy. In the midst of these developments, Emily found moments of profound beauty and inspiration. One afternoon, while walking through a botanical garden with Sam, she paused to marvel at the intricate patterns of leaves and flowers, shapes and colors that her brain now began to perceive with surprising clarity. The experience was both surreal and deeply moving, a tangible affirmation of the technology's potential to restore not just sight but a sense of wonder. She shared this moment in a heartfelt blog post that went viral, touching the hearts of thousands and sparking conversations about the transformative power of merging human experience with technology. The narrative also highlighted the essential role of emotional support and mental health care in the adaptation process, urging society to view technological advances holistically. As the year drew to a close, Neuralink announced plans to initiate pediatric trials, aiming to help children born blind access the technology's benefits early in life. Emily was invited to contribute to the design of child-friendly interfaces and support programs, drawing on her extensive experience with adult patients. She recognized the unique challenges and opportunities of introducing such advanced technology to developing brains and families. This next chapter in Neuralink's journey symbolized hope for a future where blindness could be challenged from birth, transforming lives from the earliest moments. Emily felt a profound sense of purpose, knowing that her path, from a blind woman grappling with loss to a leader in cutting-edge science, was part of something far greater. Reflecting on her journey, she often returned to the question that had ignited her first steps: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Her story was an answer, a testament to resilience, community, and the human capacity to adapt and thrive. As Neuralink moved forward, she remained a steadfast advocate, mentor, and visionary, committed to ensuring that the technology would not only restore vision but also illuminate the boundless potential of the human spirit. As the pediatric trial phase approached, Neuralink's atmosphere was charged with both excitement and caution. Children represented a unique population, neurologically more plastic but also more vulnerable. Emily felt the weight of this responsibility acutely. She spent hours consulting with pediatric neurologists, child psychologists, and families to understand the best ways to introduce Neuralink's technology safely and compassionately. Her own journey had taught her that success wasn't just about restoring sight but about supporting the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. One of the first children enrolled was Lily, a bright and curious 6-year-old born with congenital blindness. Her parents, Sarah and Mark, were both teachers who had researched every available option. When they heard about Neuralink's trial, they saw it as a beacon of hope after years of waiting and wondering what the future might hold. Meeting Lily was a turning point for Emily. The child's wide smile and infectious curiosity ignited a fresh sense of purpose. The trial protocol was designed to be child-friendly. The implant procedure was less invasive than in adults, and therapy sessions incorporated play, art, and music to engage Lily's senses and encourage brain adaptation. Sarah described Lily as a fearless explorer despite her blindness. "She's never seen a sunset or a butterfly," Sarah said softly. "We want her to experience the world in ways we can only imagine." Watching Lily's progress was both thrilling and humbling. Within weeks, the implant began transmitting rudimentary visual signals. Lily's reactions were sometimes playful, sometimes confused, but always genuine. Therapists reported that Lily responded positively to visual stimuli in sessions, tracking objects and showing signs of color differentiation. Emily was struck by how rapidly a young brain could adapt when nurtured in a supportive environment. She documented these developments meticulously, mindful that every detail would shape future care standards. However, the pediatric trial also revealed new challenges. Children's brains, while adaptable, were sensitive to overstimulation, and careful balancing of implant activity was essential. Therapists had to be vigilant for signs of fatigue, distress, or behavioral changes. The team developed new protocols to monitor emotional well-being alongside physical health, ensuring a holistic approach. At home, Sarah and Mark faced their own emotional journey, learning to support Lily's evolving experience without overwhelming her. Emily connected regularly with the family, offering guidance and reassurance. Their shared commitment forged a bond that went beyond the trial, an alliance of hope, trust, and resilience. As the pediatric program grew, Neuralink expanded its support network, training therapists in specialized techniques for children and creating resources for families navigating this new frontier. Emily became a mentor for other participants' families, sharing insights and fostering a sense of community. Public interest in the pediatric trial surged, sparking widespread discussions about the ethics of early neural intervention and the promise of changing the trajectory of disability from birth. Media coverage balanced hope with caution, highlighting both the groundbreaking potential and the need for rigorous oversight. Emily welcomed these conversations, believing transparency was vital to maintaining trust. One day, while preparing a presentation for a medical conference, Emily received an urgent call from Sarah. Lily had experienced a seizure, a rare but serious complication. The news hit Emily hard. She immediately traveled to the hospital, joining the medical team to support Lily and her family. The incident underscored the fragility of the trial and the stakes involved. The cause of the seizure was unclear, but it prompted a thorough review of protocols and safety measures. Neuralink paused pediatric implantations temporarily, focusing on investigating and preventing further incidents. This setback was a sobering reminder that innovation carried inherent risks. Emily's resolve deepened. She became an outspoken advocate for patient safety, pushing for transparent reporting and collaborative problem-solving. The Neuralink team worked tirelessly to analyze data, refine surgical techniques, and enhance monitoring technologies. Gradually, confidence in the trial's safety measures was restored. Lily's recovery was steady, and her parents remained committed to continuing the trial once it resumed. Through this difficult period, Emily saw firsthand the power of community, the way families, clinicians, engineers, and advocates came together to support one another in the face of uncertainty. It reinforced her belief that technology alone was not enough, empathy and shared humanity were equally essential. As Neuralink prepared to restart the pediatric trial, new protocols were introduced. These included more comprehensive pre-surgical assessments, enhanced post-operative care, and integrated mental health support for children and families. Emily helped develop educational materials to prepare families for the emotional and physical journey ahead. The trial's resumption was met with cautious optimism, symbolizing progress tempered by hard-earned wisdom. Emily also balanced her advocacy with ongoing research into adult users' long-term adaptation. She noticed emerging trends. Some adults reported changes in emotional processing and memory linked to the implant's neural stimulation. These findings opened new avenues of investigation into how brain-computer interfaces might influence cognition and personality over time. Emily engaged with neuroscientists to explore these questions, contributing data and insights. This research added depth to the ethical discussions surrounding Neuralink's technology, emphasizing the importance of monitoring psychological as well as physical effects. Despite these complexities, success stories continued to inspire. Marcus, who had struggled early on, was now able to navigate his neighborhood confidently using the implant's enhanced depth perception. Hannah, the young woman from Tokyo, had begun painting, her brush strokes guided by newly perceived colors and shapes, expressing a world she had never seen but now could sense in a profoundly personal way. These victories fueled the team's dedication. For Emily, each story was a reminder that the journey was not just about science but about human transformation. Her own vision had evolved beyond the literal restoration of sight to encompass a broader understanding of perception, identity, and connection. The world was becoming more accessible, not only through technology but through the collective effort to reimagine possibility. Towards the end of the year, Neuralink hosted its first international summit, bringing together patients, clinicians, engineers, ethicists, and policymakers from around the globe. Emily was a keynote speaker, sharing her story and advocating for a future where neurotechnology was developed with integrity, inclusivity, and compassion. She emphasized the lessons learned, the triumphs and setbacks, and called for ongoing dialogue and collaboration. The summit was a milestone, signaling the maturation of Neuralink's vision and the growing recognition of brain-computer interfaces as a new frontier in medicine and humanity. After the summit, Emily returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. She and Sam discussed their hopes for the coming years, the possibility of wider adoption, improved quality of life for users, and the expansion of support networks. They also talked about the challenges that lay ahead, navigating regulation, ensuring equity, and continuing research into the long-term implications of brain implants. As she looked toward the future, Emily found herself reflecting on the initial question that had set her on this path: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Her journey was an answer to that question, a testament to resilience, community, and the indomitable human spirit. Neuralink's technology was more than a device, it was a bridge between darkness and light, limitation and possibility. Emily was ready to continue leading the way, guided by the conviction that restoring vision was not only about seeing the world but about seeing each other, with empathy, hope, and shared humanity. The resumption of the pediatric trial brought a renewed sense of hope tempered by the hard lessons of past challenges. Lily's recovery had inspired families and clinicians alike, and with new safety protocols in place, Neuralink moved forward cautiously but confidently. Emily remained deeply involved, serving as a liaison between the families, medical teams, and engineers. Her role extended beyond participant support. She helped shape trial procedures to ensure they addressed not only physical safety but also emotional well-being. Neuralink's multidisciplinary approach integrated neurology, psychology, rehabilitation, and ethics, creating a holistic care model that became a hallmark of the program. As Lily progressed, her experiences became a powerful source of data and inspiration. One afternoon, during a therapy session in a sunlit room filled with colorful toys and digital screens, Lily surprised everyone by reaching out to touch a small butterfly resting on a plant. The implant was transmitting signals that allowed her to perceive subtle movement and shape, igniting a spark of connection with the natural world. Her parents, Sarah and Mark, watched with tears of joy, witnessing a breakthrough that transcended technology. Emily captured the moment on video, sharing it with the Neuralink community to remind everyone why the work mattered. At the same time, adult participants continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. Marcus, who had once relied heavily on a cane, was now navigating busy streets independently, guided by enhanced visual input from his implant. His confidence grew with each successful outing, rekindling a sense of freedom and autonomy that had been lost for years. Marcus's story was featured in a documentary highlighting the human impact of Neuralink's innovation. Emily participated in the film, sharing her own journey and emphasizing the collective effort behind these individual successes. The documentary sparked widespread interest and dialogue, bringing attention to the potential and the challenges of brain-computer interfaces. Neuralink's leadership recognized the importance of managing public expectations carefully, avoiding hype while celebrating meaningful progress. Meanwhile, Emily and the research team began exploring the psychological effects of long-term implant use. Some participants reported changes in mood, memory, and perception that suggested neuroplasticity was being influenced in unexpected ways. These findings opened new avenues of inquiry into the brain's adaptability and the complex interplay between technology and cognition. Collaborative studies with universities and independent research centers were launched to investigate these phenomena further. Emily found herself at the forefront of a new scientific frontier, balancing excitement with caution as she helped develop guidelines for ethical use and monitoring of neurotechnology. The conversation around privacy and consent grew louder as more data was collected. Neuralink invested heavily in cybersecurity measures and transparent data governance to protect participants' rights and build trust. Emily actively participated in public forums and policy discussions, advocating for frameworks that prioritized safety, autonomy, and equitable access. On a personal level, Emily's relationship with Sam deepened amid the whirlwind of professional demands. They discovered strength in vulnerability, sharing fears and hopes for the future. Sam's unwavering support was a lifeline during moments of doubt and exhaustion, reminding Emily of the importance of human connection beyond technology. Together, they dreamed of a world where disabilities could be transformed through innovation, but where compassion and dignity remained at the center of care. The year brought new opportunities and challenges. Neuralink's engineering team unveiled a next-generation implant featuring improved biocompatibility, longer battery life, and wireless charging capabilities. This advancement promised to reduce surgical risks and improve user comfort, making the technology more accessible to a broader population. Emily volunteered to test the new device, embracing the role of both participant and advocate. The upgrade required a delicate surgical procedure and a period of adjustment as her brain adapted to the refined interface. Early results were promising, with increased signal clarity and richer visual perception. However, the adaptation process also highlighted the importance of personalized therapy and ongoing support. Neuralink expanded its rehabilitation programs, integrating AI-driven feedback systems and virtual reality environments tailored to individual needs. These innovations accelerated learning and brain adaptation, transforming rehabilitation into an immersive, engaging experience. Emily helped design some of these programs, drawing on her own experience to ensure they were empathetic and effective. The integration of AI also raised ethical questions, which Emily helped address through multidisciplinary committees. Transparency, consent, and the potential for unintended consequences were central themes in ongoing discussions. Emily's leadership in these areas solidified her reputation as a thoughtful, patient-centered advocate. Meanwhile, the broader medical community began recognizing the potential of brain-computer interfaces beyond vision restoration. Neuralink initiated collaborations with researchers exploring applications in motor function, memory enhancement, and mental health treatment. Emily participated in some pilot projects, contributing insights from the vision trial and advocating for comprehensive patient support. These developments hinted at a future where neural implants could address a wide range of neurological conditions, transforming medicine and human experience. However, they also reinforced the need for rigorous safety standards and ethical oversight. Public engagement remained a priority. Neuralink organized workshops, webinars, and community events to educate and involve patients, families, and the general public. Emily's storytelling ability was central to these efforts, making complex science accessible and relatable. Her openness about challenges and setbacks fostered trust and a sense of shared mission. As Neuralink expanded internationally, Emily connected with patient groups worldwide, learning about diverse needs and cultural perspectives. These interactions enriched the program's approach, emphasizing inclusivity and adaptability. Emily's journey, from a blind woman grappling with loss to a leader in cutting-edge science, became a beacon of hope and possibility. She reflected often on the question that had sparked her transformation: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Her story was an answer, a testament to resilience, community, and the power of human connection. As the chapter of 2026 closed, Neuralink stood on the threshold of new horizons. The technology was evolving rapidly, bringing sight to those who had lived in darkness and opening doors to unimagined possibilities. Yet, the journey was far from over. Emily knew that each breakthrough carried responsibility, the responsibility to listen, to adapt, and to care. The future of neurotechnology was not just a matter of circuits and codes but of humanity, hope, and the enduring quest to see the world, and each other, more clearly. Neuralink's expanding successes brought new attention from investors, regulators, and the global media. As word spread about the growing number of patients experiencing restored vision, Emily found herself navigating the delicate balance between innovation and responsibility. With increased funding came pressure to accelerate development and expand access, but Emily remained steadfast in her commitment to patient-centered care. One of the most significant developments was the launch of Neuralink's community support platform, designed to connect participants and their families across the world. Emily was a key contributor to the platform's content, sharing personal insights and facilitating discussions about coping strategies, rehabilitation, and the emotional journey of adaptation. The community became a lifeline for many, a place where stories of triumph and struggle were exchanged with honesty and compassion. It was also a source of valuable feedback that helped Neuralink refine its technology and support programs. Meanwhile, Emily continued her own therapy, discovering new depths of perception as her brain adapted to the evolving implant technology. She marveled at the way her brain was learning to interpret visual signals, shapes, colors, movement, and how her mind was filling in gaps with memories and imagination. The process was challenging and often frustrating, but it deepened her understanding of the intimate connection between sight and identity. At a medical conference in Chicago, Emily shared her journey as a keynote speaker. She emphasized the importance of combining technological innovation with empathy, patient education, and ethical vigilance. Her talk was met with standing ovations and sparked vibrant discussions about the future of neurotechnology. Emily highlighted the successes of both adult and pediatric trials, acknowledging setbacks and emphasizing lessons learned. She called for continued collaboration among scientists, clinicians, patients, and policymakers to ensure the technology served humanity's best interests. During the conference, Emily met Dr. Miguel Santos, a leading expert in neural rehabilitation from Brazil. They quickly connected over shared values and visions for neurotechnology's potential. Dr. Santos had pioneered immersive therapy techniques that combined virtual reality with brain stimulation to accelerate adaptation. Neuralink began a partnership with his team to integrate these methods into their rehabilitation programs. Emily was excited by the possibilities, eager to enhance outcomes for participants worldwide. As this collaboration took shape, the challenges of accessibility and equity became increasingly clear. While Neuralink's technology promised life-changing benefits, the high costs and specialized care required risked creating disparities. Emily advocated for programs to subsidize implants for low-income patients and to expand training for therapists in underserved areas. Neuralink launched a global initiative to increase accessibility, partnering with non-profit organizations and governments. Emily traveled to remote clinics in rural America and underserved regions abroad, witnessing firsthand the profound impact neurotechnology could have when barriers were removed. These experiences deepened her resolve to make Neuralink's breakthroughs available to all who could benefit. Back at Neuralink's headquarters, the engineering team unveiled a breakthrough in implant miniaturization. The new generation of Neuralinks was smaller, more discreet, and designed for less invasive implantation procedures. This advancement promised to reduce recovery times and broaden candidacy for implantation. Emily volunteered to receive the new device, ready to embrace the next phase of her journey. The upgrade involved careful surgery and extensive recalibration of the neural interface. During the adjustment period, Emily experienced vivid visual phenomena, shifting colors, new patterns, and glimpses of shapes that her brain struggled to interpret. Her therapists worked closely with her, combining cognitive exercises and immersive virtual environments to help her brain make sense of the new inputs. Progress was gradual but steady. Alongside these personal advances, Neuralink expanded research into potential new applications of brain-computer interfaces. Collaborations with mental health specialists explored how implants might help regulate mood disorders and cognitive impairments. Emily contributed by sharing patient perspectives, emphasizing the need for cautious, patient-focused development. These emerging areas of study illustrated the profound potential and complexity of interfacing technology directly with the human brain. However, not all news was positive. A high-profile incident involving a participant outside the U.S. raised questions about regulatory oversight and ethical standards. The participant experienced unexpected neurological side effects after implantation, sparking international debate. Neuralink responded swiftly, cooperating with authorities and reviewing protocols to enhance safety. Emily publicly addressed concerns, underscoring Neuralink's commitment to transparency, rigorous testing, and patient welfare. The incident highlighted the global challenges of regulating cutting-edge neurotechnology and reinforced the importance of robust ethical frameworks. In the midst of these developments, Emily faced a personal crossroads. Balancing her roles as patient, advocate, researcher, and mother to her young daughter tested her limits. The demands of travel, public speaking, and leadership sometimes conflicted with her family life. Sam stood by her, offering support and encouragement, but the strain was undeniable. Emily realized she needed to prioritize self-care and seek balance to sustain her mission. She began working with a counselor specializing in caregivers and innovators, finding strategies to manage stress and maintain resilience. This journey of self-care deepened her empathy for the many families navigating the complex terrain of disability and medical innovation. As the year drew to a close, Neuralink prepared to publish comprehensive data from the pediatric trial. The results were groundbreaking, significant improvements in visual acuity, depth perception, and quality of life measures, alongside detailed safety analyses. The publication was accompanied by a global summit on neurotechnology ethics, where Emily presented findings and advocated for continued patient engagement and equitable access. The summit brought together diverse voices, patients, clinicians, ethicists, engineers, and policymakers, reflecting the multifaceted nature of neurotechnology's promise and challenges. Emily left the summit inspired by the collective dedication to advancing technology responsibly and compassionately. Reflecting on the past years, Emily recognized how far she and Neuralink had come. From the uncertainty of early trials to the hope embodied in each patient's progress, the journey was a testament to perseverance and collaboration. She was proud of her role in shaping a future where blindness might no longer be a barrier to experiencing the world's beauty. Yet, she remained humble, aware that the path ahead would require ongoing vigilance, innovation, and humanity. Looking forward, Emily envisioned a future where Neuralink's technology integrated seamlessly into daily life, empowering users to reclaim independence and explore new dimensions of perception. She dreamed of a world where neurotechnology could heal, enhance, and connect people in ways previously unimaginable. Her story was one of transformation, not just restoring sight but illuminating what it means to be human, resilient, and hopeful. As she tucked her daughter into bed one evening, Emily whispered a promise, to continue this journey with courage, compassion, and unwavering belief in the power of human potential. Neuralink's breakthrough technology was rapidly changing lives, but with that change came new questions and challenges that extended beyond science and medicine. Emily found herself increasingly involved in the ethical debates surrounding brain-computer interfaces. At a major ethics symposium held in Washington, D.C., she joined a panel alongside bioethicists, neuroscientists, patients, and policymakers to discuss the responsibilities of innovators in this new frontier. The discussions were complex, touching on privacy, consent, accessibility, and the potential for misuse. Emily shared her personal experiences, emphasizing the human dimension behind the technology. She reminded the audience that every data point represented a person with hopes, fears, and families. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had lived through blindness and was now navigating a new reality shaped by Neuralink. The symposium highlighted the growing need for comprehensive policies that protected users without stifling innovation. Emily advocated for frameworks that balanced progress with caution, ensuring transparency, informed consent, and equitable access. Back at Neuralink, the research team was exploring how the implant's visual data could integrate with augmented reality systems. This integration promised to enrich the sensory experience for users, blending real-world input with digital enhancements that could provide context, navigation, or even artistic overlays. Emily was intrigued but cautious. She understood the potential to expand perception but worried about sensory overload or dependence on technology. Therapy sessions began incorporating controlled augmented reality exercises, helping users adapt to new layers of sensory input while maintaining focus and comfort. One participant, James, a former architect who had lost his sight in an accident, found these tools transformative. Using the implant coupled with augmented reality, he began creating tactile 3D models that he could see through neural feedback, reigniting his passion for design. James's story became a powerful example of how technology could not only restore lost function but also open new avenues of creativity and expression. Meanwhile, Emily's advocacy work expanded internationally. She traveled to conferences in Europe and Asia, engaging with diverse patient communities and sharing Neuralink's experiences. These journeys deepened her understanding of cultural perspectives on disability and technology, reminding her that solutions must be adaptable and sensitive to local contexts. Neuralink launched partnerships with global health organizations to pilot accessibility programs in low-resource settings, aiming to bridge the gap between cutting-edge innovation and practical availability. These efforts brought challenges, including logistical hurdles and regulatory variations, but Emily remained committed to fostering collaboration and equity. Back home, balancing these demands with family life required constant adjustment. Emily found solace in small daily rituals, morning walks with her daughter, quiet evenings with Sam, moments of mindfulness that grounded her amid the whirlwind. She also leaned on a growing network of peers, patients, advocates, and professionals who understood the unique pressures and rewards of working at the intersection of technology and humanity. As the Neuralink team prepared for the next phase of clinical trials focused on expanding sensory capabilities, Emily was invited to participate in an advisory capacity. The new trials aimed to explore how implants might restore hearing or enhance tactile sensation for individuals with sensory impairments. The prospect was exciting but daunting, as it raised new technical and ethical questions. Emily engaged deeply with the design and safety review processes, drawing on her experience to help ensure that patient welfare remained paramount. Meanwhile, the public narrative around Neuralink continued to evolve. Media outlets covered breakthrough cases, but also highlighted concerns raised by skeptics and ethicists. Emily took part in interviews and public forums, addressing misconceptions and fostering informed dialogue. She emphasized the importance of ongoing research, realistic expectations, and the human stories that underpinned every statistic. One afternoon, Emily received an unexpected call from Marcus. He had recently experienced a sudden improvement in his visual acuity after months of steady progress. Marcus described seeing details, a bird's feathers, the pattern on a leaf, that had previously been indistinct or invisible. This leap forward was attributed to a combination of implant refinements and personalized therapy adjustments. Emily celebrated with Marcus, recognizing that such breakthroughs underscored the dynamic nature of neural adaptation and the promise of continual improvement. At Neuralink headquarters, engineers announced plans to develop implant software that users could customize, tailoring visual processing to their preferences and lifestyles. This user-centered design approach aimed to enhance comfort, usability, and satisfaction. Emily was enthusiastic, seeing it as an important step toward empowering patients as active participants in their own sensory experience. The new software interface would include features like adjustable contrast, brightness, and filter modes, as well as options to integrate environmental data such as weather or location-based cues. This personalization was expected to improve adaptation and quality of life. As Emily worked with software developers and therapists to design user training materials, she reflected on how far the technology had come from its early days. The journey was marked by collaboration, persistence, and a relentless focus on human impact. Neuralink's innovations were no longer just experimental devices but evolving tools shaping new ways of perceiving and interacting with the world. Despite the progress, Emily remained grounded in the knowledge that each participant's experience was unique. She continued to prioritize empathy, patience, and adaptability in her work, recognizing that technology was only as meaningful as the lives it touched. As 2027 unfolded, Neuralink's research expanded into neural interfaces that could potentially enhance cognitive functions such as memory and attention. This frontier raised profound questions about identity, consent, and societal implications. Emily engaged with interdisciplinary teams exploring these issues, advocating for responsible development that respected individual autonomy and privacy. Public discourse intensified, with diverse opinions about the ethical boundaries of cognitive enhancement. Emily participated in community forums and policy workshops, helping to bridge gaps between scientific possibilities and public values. Through it all, Emily's own journey continued. She experienced moments of awe and gratitude as her sight improved, allowing her to witness the world's colors, textures, and faces in new detail. At the same time, she acknowledged the ongoing challenges of adaptation, the mental effort, the emotional ups and downs, the need for continuous support. Her story was one of transformation but also of resilience and hope. In quiet moments, Emily often revisited the question that had first ignited her path: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Her experience answered that question with a story of connection, courage, and the power of technology guided by humanity. Neuralink's journey was far from complete, but its impact was undeniable. Emily stood at the crossroads of science, ethics, and lived experience, ready to continue shaping a future where blindness, and perhaps other disabilities, were no longer barriers to seeing and embracing life in all its richness. The excitement around Neuralink's advancements was palpable, but with progress came new challenges that tested the resilience and adaptability of everyone involved. Emily found herself increasingly drawn into the intricate balance between technological possibility and human limitation. As the trials expanded to include sensory enhancement beyond vision, the stakes grew higher. Neuralink's team was now working to integrate auditory implants aimed at restoring hearing in individuals with profound deafness. This new venture brought complex engineering problems and heightened ethical concerns. Emily volunteered to participate in a focus group designed to assess user needs and expectations for these auditory devices. She spoke candidly about her own journey, emphasizing the emotional and psychological dimensions of sensory loss and restoration. The conversations revealed the diversity of patient experiences and the importance of personalized approaches. Meanwhile, Emily's daily life was filled with moments that highlighted both the miraculous and the mundane aspects of her restored vision. She described to her daughter the colors of the flowers they saw on their walks, the way sunlight filtered through leaves, and the expressions on people's faces, details that had once been beyond her reach. These moments grounded her, reminding her that technology was a bridge to the world, not a replacement for human connection. Neuralink's engineers unveiled a prototype implant designed for dual sensory input, combining visual and auditory signals into a cohesive neural experience. The device was smaller and more energy efficient, promising longer battery life and less invasive surgical procedures. Emily was invited to be among the first to test the combined implant, embracing the opportunity despite the inherent risks. The surgery was challenging, requiring precision and coordination among multidisciplinary teams. Post-operative recovery involved intensive therapy sessions where Emily learned to interpret the new influx of sensory data. The integration of sound and sight was both exhilarating and overwhelming, as her brain adapted to processing complex stimuli simultaneously. Therapists employed immersive virtual reality environments to help her build sensory maps and improve coordination. Progress was uneven, marked by moments of frustration and breakthrough. Emily documented her experiences meticulously, contributing valuable qualitative data to the research. Neuralink's commitment to transparency led to the publication of detailed case studies, highlighting both successes and challenges. Public interest surged, with media outlets eager to share stories of multisensory restoration. Emily found herself fielding interviews and participating in documentaries that showcased the human face of neurotechnology. Yet, beneath the public spotlight, she grappled with questions about identity and adaptation. The new sensory inputs altered her perception of self and surroundings in ways she had not anticipated. She experienced sensory fatigue, moments of disorientation, and the psychological weight of relearning how to experience the world. Support groups and counseling became essential components of her journey, underscoring the importance of holistic care. On the research front, Neuralink collaborated with universities and cognitive scientists to understand the neuroplastic changes triggered by multisensory implants. Early findings suggested that the brain's capacity for adaptation was remarkable but also finite, requiring carefully calibrated stimulation to avoid overload or maladaptation. Emily's insights helped shape rehabilitation protocols that balanced stimulation with rest and cognitive training. The ethical landscape continued to evolve. As implants became more sophisticated, concerns about user autonomy, data security, and potential for coercion intensified. Emily participated in international panels that debated regulatory frameworks and patient rights. She advocated passionately for informed consent processes that were dynamic and ongoing, reflecting the evolving nature of neural technology. Accessibility remained a central focus. Neuralink's global outreach programs aimed to make implants available in diverse socioeconomic contexts, but logistical and financial barriers persisted. Emily's visits to clinics in underserved regions revealed disparities that technology alone could not overcome. She championed integrated approaches combining technological innovation with education, infrastructure development, and community engagement. Her advocacy influenced policy discussions and funding initiatives aimed at bridging these gaps. Amidst professional commitments, Emily's personal life was enriched by renewed relationships and new challenges. Sam and their daughter became her anchor, grounding her amid the whirlwind of change. Together, they navigated the complexities of a life transformed by technology, balancing hope with realism. Emily's experiences deepened her empathy for families facing uncertainty and adaptation, fueling her commitment to patient-centered care. As Neuralink prepared for large-scale clinical trials of the dual-sensory implant, Emily was appointed to a newly formed patient advisory board. The board was tasked with providing continuous feedback, ensuring that patient voices remained central in development and implementation. Emily embraced this leadership role, seeing it as an extension of her journey from participant to advocate to policymaker. She worked closely with engineers, clinicians, and ethicists to shape protocols, user training, and support systems. The board's recommendations emphasized flexibility, personalization, and respect for individual experiences. Neuralink's public relations team launched campaigns that highlighted patient stories like Emily's, portraying neurotechnology as a tool of empowerment and hope. These narratives inspired many but also sparked debates about the pace of adoption and potential risks. Emily engaged with critics and supporters alike, promoting balanced, informed conversations. The year culminated in the publication of a comprehensive report detailing the outcomes of multisensory implant trials. The findings were promising, showing significant improvements in sensory perception, quality of life, and neuroplastic adaptation. However, the report also cautioned about challenges related to sensory integration, long-term effects, and psychological impacts. Emily's foreword to the report captured the spirit of the journey, one of courage, complexity, and shared humanity. Reflecting on her path, Emily recognized that Neuralink's story was about more than technology. It was about redefining possibilities, challenging limitations, and embracing the full spectrum of human experience. Her journey embodied the resilience and hope that inspired so many, a testament to what could be achieved when innovation was guided by compassion. As she looked to the future, Emily remained committed to advancing neurotechnology with humility and vigilance. She knew that the road ahead would be filled with both breakthroughs and setbacks, but she was ready to face them with the same courage that had carried her this far. The promise of a world where blindness and sensory loss were no longer barriers was within reach, but it required ongoing dedication to ethics, equity, and empathy. Emily's story was a beacon, illuminating a path toward a future where technology and humanity walked hand in hand, transforming lives in ways once thought impossible. Neuralink's rapid advancements ushered in a new era of possibility, but as the technology matured, so did the complexity of the questions surrounding it. For Emily, the thrill of restored vision and sensory integration was intertwined with deep reflection on the implications of merging human consciousness with machines. One afternoon, while reviewing case studies with her therapy team, Emily encountered a patient named Claire, a young woman who had been blind since birth and recently received a Neuralink implant designed to stimulate visual pathways. Claire's journey was unlike Emily's, filled with unique challenges and profound insights. Without prior visual memories, Claire's brain faced the monumental task of constructing sight from scratch. Emily was fascinated by the neuroplasticity involved, and she began working closely with Claire's rehabilitation team, helping develop new therapy protocols that combined visual stimulation with language and cognitive training. Watching Claire's progress was both inspiring and humbling, reminding Emily how vision was more than an image, it was a language of the brain that required learning and adaptation. Neuralink's engineering team was concurrently tackling the challenge of refining signal processing algorithms to better mimic natural vision. Emily participated in design sessions, providing feedback on user experience and the emotional impact of sensory input quality. The team experimented with enhancing contrast, depth cues, and motion detection to create a more immersive and comfortable experience. Emily advocated for gradual calibration options, understanding that sensory overload could hinder rather than help adaptation. The delicate balance between technology and biology was at the forefront of every decision. Meanwhile, Emily's advocacy extended beyond the clinical realm. She joined forces with organizations promoting disability rights and inclusive technology, ensuring that Neuralink's innovations complemented broader societal goals. Emily believed that technology should empower without isolating, connecting individuals rather than separating them from their communities. She spoke at conferences, emphasizing the importance of accessibility, education, and social support alongside medical advancements. On the personal front, Emily's relationship with Sam deepened as they navigated the ongoing changes together. Parenthood took on new dimensions as their daughter grew curious about her mother's journey and the technology that had reshaped their lives. Emily found joy in sharing simple moments, reading bedtime stories illuminated by her newfound sight, exploring nature on family outings, and celebrating small victories. These experiences were the heart of her transformation, grounding her mission in the everyday realities of love and connection. Neuralink's research also ventured into cognitive enhancement, sparking lively debates about the boundaries of human augmentation. Emily was cautiously optimistic, recognizing potential benefits for memory and learning but concerned about ethical pitfalls. She participated in interdisciplinary forums exploring safeguards, consent, and long-term effects, advocating for patient-centered approaches that respected individual autonomy and societal values. The public conversation around these developments was polarized, with excitement mingling with apprehension. Emily embraced her role as a mediator, fostering dialogue grounded in empathy and evidence. At Neuralink headquarters, the engineering team announced the development of a new implant generation featuring wireless charging and real-time neural feedback. This innovation promised greater convenience and adaptability, allowing users to customize sensory experiences dynamically. Emily volunteered to be among the first testers, eager to explore the new possibilities. The wireless implant reduced physical constraints and enhanced data transmission, facilitating more nuanced interactions between brain and device. Rehabilitation protocols incorporated advanced neurofeedback techniques, enabling users to consciously influence neural signals and improve sensory integration. Emily found this empowerment exhilarating but recognized the responsibility it entailed. During one therapy session, Emily experienced an unexpected emotional surge triggered by a vivid visual memory rekindled through the implant, a sunset she had witnessed before losing her sight. The flood of colors, warmth, and light stirred profound gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. Moments like these underscored the intimate connection between technology and memory, sensation and identity. They also highlighted the therapeutic potential of implants beyond mere sensory restoration. Neuralink's global outreach initiatives gained momentum as Emily traveled to underserved regions, witnessing firsthand the impact of expanded access. She visited clinics where local health workers were trained to support implant recipients, blending traditional care with cutting-edge technology. These experiences deepened her commitment to equity and community engagement, reinforcing that innovation must be inclusive to be truly transformative. Back home, Emily balanced her multifaceted roles with increasing skill and grace. She continued writing about her journey, contributing to scientific journals, public media, and patient forums. Her story inspired many, people grappling with sensory loss, caregivers seeking hope, and technologists striving to humanize their work. Emily's voice became a bridge, connecting diverse perspectives and fostering a shared vision of possibility. As the year drew to a close, Neuralink prepared for a landmark clinical trial aimed at pediatric patients with multiple sensory impairments. This ambitious project required intricate coordination among medical teams, ethicists, families, and regulatory bodies. Emily played a pivotal role in designing patient-centered protocols and support systems, ensuring that children and their families received comprehensive care. The trial's success would have far-reaching implications, potentially redefining standards of care for sensory disabilities worldwide. Amid these developments, Emily faced personal challenges that tested her resilience. The intensity of her work, combined with family responsibilities, sometimes left her drained and vulnerable. She turned to mindfulness practices, counseling, and her support network to maintain balance. These moments of self-care deepened her empathy for others navigating similar struggles, enriching her advocacy with authenticity and compassion. Reflecting on her journey, Emily recognized that Neuralink's story was one of convergence, where technology met humanity, science met ethics, and possibility met responsibility. Her path had been shaped by loss and hope, challenge and triumph, isolation and connection. The technology that restored her sight had also restored her voice, purpose, and faith in the future. Looking ahead, Emily remained committed to advancing neurotechnology with humility and vigilance. She envisioned a future where implants not only restored function but enhanced well-being, nurtured community, and respected the richness of human experience. Her story was a testament to the power of innovation guided by empathy, a beacon illuminating the way forward in the evolving landscape of brain-computer interfaces. Neuralink's journey was entering a new phase, marked by both exciting advancements and fresh complexities. Emily was at the heart of it all, deeply involved in testing and advocacy, but also confronting the unforeseen emotional and psychological dimensions of the technology. One morning, as she prepared for a routine therapy session, she received news that the FDA had approved the expanded clinical trials for multisensory implants in pediatric patients. The announcement was a milestone for Neuralink and a personal victory for Emily, who had been instrumental in designing patient-centered protocols. Yet, it also brought an acute awareness of the heightened responsibilities involved in working with children and families navigating profound sensory challenges. Emily traveled to the first pediatric trial site, a children's hospital in Chicago, where she met families eager but anxious about the new technology. She listened closely to their hopes and fears, recognizing the delicate balance of optimism and caution that defined their journey. Emily spent hours with the children, engaging in play-based therapy designed to help young brains adapt to neural stimulation. The energy and curiosity of the children were inspiring, reminding Emily of the brain's incredible capacity for growth and learning. Yet she also witnessed moments of frustration and fatigue, underscoring the need for patience, support, and personalized care. Back at Neuralink headquarters, engineers and clinicians worked tirelessly to refine implant designs to accommodate the unique anatomical and developmental needs of pediatric patients. Emily collaborated with them closely, providing insights from her experience and patient feedback. The development of smaller, lighter implants with adaptive software algorithms was a technical challenge, but one that promised profound impact. Meanwhile, Emily's role as a public advocate grew. She spoke at medical conferences, technology forums, and community events, sharing stories of restored sight and expanded perception. Her candid discussions about the emotional roller coaster of adaptation, moments of elation and doubt, clarity and confusion, resonated deeply with audiences. Emily emphasized that neurotechnology was not a quick fix but a lifelong journey requiring resilience, support, and humanity. The media spotlight intensified, with stories portraying Neuralink as a symbol of hope and innovation. Emily navigated interviews with grace, balancing enthusiasm with honesty about challenges and limitations. She stressed the importance of ongoing research, ethical oversight, and equitable access, advocating for a future where technology uplifted all people regardless of background or circumstance. At home, Emily found solace and strength in her family. Sam and their daughter continued to be her anchors amid the whirlwind of progress and pressure. Their shared experiences, exploring new sensory experiences together, celebrating milestones, and facing setbacks, deepened their bond. Emily cherished the simple joys of family life, grounding her commitment to the broader mission in love and connection. Neuralink's research expanded into cognitive and emotional interfaces, aiming to explore how neural implants could support mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. Emily engaged with interdisciplinary teams investigating these frontiers, intrigued by the potential but mindful of the ethical complexities. She participated in discussions about patient autonomy, data privacy, and the social implications of brain modulation. The boundaries between therapy and enhancement blurred, raising profound questions that required thoughtful deliberation. Meanwhile, Emily continued to document her personal journey through writing and speaking, creating a platform for patient voices and nuanced dialogue. Her essays and talks highlighted the lived realities behind the technology, the struggles, breakthroughs, fears, and hopes. She became a trusted liaison between patients, scientists, and policymakers, fostering understanding and collaboration. As Neuralink prepared for the launch of a next-generation implant featuring advanced wireless capabilities and AI-driven sensory processing, Emily was selected to lead a pilot study assessing user experience and safety. The implant promised more naturalistic perception, customizable sensory filters, and seamless integration with digital devices. The pilot study was rigorous, involving multidisciplinary teams and extensive monitoring. Emily's feedback was invaluable in identifying areas for improvement, from signal clarity to user interface design. The experience deepened her appreciation for the collaborative nature of innovation. During one particularly challenging phase, Emily faced a setback when unexpected neural fatigue led to temporary sensory distortion. The episode was disorienting and emotionally taxing, but with the support of her medical team and family, she managed to regain stability. This experience reinforced the importance of cautious optimism and continuous care in neurotechnology. Emily shared her story openly, helping others prepare for the complexities of adaptation. The year culminated in a major conference where Neuralink presented comprehensive data from multisensory and cognitive enhancement trials. Emily delivered a keynote address, weaving together scientific findings with personal narrative. She highlighted the transformative potential of brain-computer interfaces while acknowledging the ongoing challenges and ethical imperatives. Her speech was met with standing ovations, inspiring renewed commitment across the field. Reflecting on her journey, Emily realized that Neuralink's story was one of evolving human experience, a convergence of science, emotion, ethics, and hope. Her path from blindness to restored sight, from patient to advocate, embodied the possibilities and responsibilities of neurotechnology. Looking ahead, Emily was determined to continue shaping a future where technology honored the complexity of humanity, expanded possibility, and nurtured connection. The promise of Neuralink was no longer a distant dream but a living reality, illuminating new ways to see, hear, feel, and understand the world and ourselves. Emily had come to accept that the journey with Neuralink would never truly have a final destination, only deeper levels of understanding and discovery. As the second generation of neural implants began rolling out to wider patient populations, Neuralink's role evolved from that of an experimental lab to a global medical innovator. With this shift came a cascade of new responsibilities, regulations, and social consequences. Emily now spent much of her time in a dual role, part medical liaison and part public communicator, translating the technical breakthroughs into stories that real people could understand and trust. One morning, as she reviewed patient feedback reports from several continents, she paused at a video update from a young woman in Brazil named Lucia, who had been blind since a severe viral infection at age 9. The video showed Lucia crying tears of joy after recognizing her mother's face again for the first time in 15 years. The footage was raw and unpolished, the kind of thing that never made it into official presentations, but it moved Emily more than anything she had seen in months. It reminded her why the work mattered. Emily reached out to Lucia's care team and asked to speak with her. When they connected via video call, Emily found herself staring at a glowing face on the screen, both vulnerable and electrified with new possibility. They spoke in a mixture of English and Portuguese, leaning on translators when needed. Lucia's joy was palpable, but so was her anxiety. She had moments when the images felt like dreams, moments when the light overwhelmed her. Emily listened carefully, recognizing that Lucia's story mirrored so many others, hope threaded through the dense complexity of the brain learning to see again. Emily's days were now tightly scheduled, each hour divided between clinical data reviews, meetings with international partners, and fielding questions from health agencies racing to keep up with the technology. Neuralink had recently opened satellite centers in Germany, India, and Kenya, adapting their models to fit different healthcare infrastructures. Emily was in regular contact with these hubs, ensuring that ethical protocols and patient education programs kept pace with the science. Yet she worried constantly about corners being cut, especially as more governments sought to fast-track the technology to boost national prestige. Privately, she pushed Neuralink's leadership to remain patient-first. Though the tech was dazzling, she feared the damage a single rushed rollout or misunderstood complication could do, not just to Neuralink's reputation, but to the fragile trust patients placed in the idea of neural restoration. Internally, Neuralink was facing growing pains. With their rapid expansion, the original culture of cautious, mission-driven research had started shifting into a more commercial, product-focused rhythm. Some team members were thrilled by the momentum. Others, like Emily, felt a creeping discomfort. She voiced her concerns to Elon Musk during one of their quarterly roundtables. Though his responses were characteristically ambitious and optimistic, he acknowledged the importance of keeping the core vision intact. "We're not selling sunglasses," he told the group. "We're helping people talk to the universe again." The words stuck with Emily, not because they soothed her fears, but because they reminded her of the scale of what was happening. Meanwhile, the new implants were proving more versatile than expected. The AI-based processing core allowed users to customize their perception settings on the fly, improving adaptation dramatically. Some patients preferred high-contrast outlines that made navigating cities easier. Others opted for full-spectrum color vision that enriched their emotional world. And a few, most notably artists, began experimenting with sensory overlays that blurred the line between perception and imagination. One sculptor in New York, who had lost his sight in a chemical explosion, used his Neuralink to paint with light by controlling his visual interface like a live brush. His work began gaining international attention, prompting new discussions about what constituted authentic artistic vision. Emily was both thrilled and slightly unnerved. Technology had given people new powers, but it also raised questions about what was natural, what was enhanced, and whether the distinction even mattered anymore. Philosophers, psychologists, and theologians were being pulled into the conversation, and Emily found herself invited to more and more interdisciplinary think tanks. She welcomed these spaces, places where questions often had no clear answers, but she was also wary of intellectualizing away the human cost. Every day, people were making life-changing decisions based on technology they barely understood. Her mission, she reminded herself constantly, was to keep their stories front and center. Late one night, she received a call from a hospital in Tokyo. A young boy named Aki, one of the first pediatric patients in Asia to receive a dual implant, had developed unexpected complications. His sensory input began looping during sleep cycles, leading to frightening night terrors and hallucinations. The doctors were panicked, and the family was considering deactivating the implant entirely. Emily stayed on the line for hours, walking through the data logs, suggesting recalibration protocols, and helping calm the family. By sunrise, Aki's symptoms had begun to fade after a software update. Emily logged off and wept quietly in her kitchen, overwhelmed by how close brilliance and danger sat beside each other in this work. She kept seeing Aki's face in her mind all day. It reminded her that this wasn't just about progress, it was about people's children, their lives, their hopes. And the weight of that could never be outsourced to a software update. Neuralink instituted a new global safety protocol that week, with Emily leading the task force to establish better safeguards for pediatric applications. Her report became mandatory reading for every new clinician entering the program. Meanwhile, more data was coming in about the long-term psychological impact of sensory restoration. Many patients experienced a strange form of reverse grief, mourning the years they had lived without sight, and struggling to integrate their new reality into the identity they had built in darkness. Emily began co-authoring a guide for post-implant mental health, collaborating with therapists and neuropsychologists to create a framework that could be deployed worldwide. The guide emphasized narrative therapy, allowing patients to reconstruct their life story with this new chapter of sight as not just a technical change, but a personal transformation. In one powerful group therapy session in Los Angeles, a man named Jose, who had been blind for 20 years, shared how he hadn't recognized his own face in the mirror after receiving his implant. "I still don't know if I'm the same person," he said. "But I think maybe I'm someone new now." Emily watched others nod slowly, the room quiet with mutual understanding. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Technology can give back what was lost, but it also reveals what was never found." The journey continued, and while Neuralink's future brimmed with potential, Emily understood more clearly than ever that this was not a sprint or even a marathon. It was a pilgrimage, a long, complicated walk into the unknown, guided by science, yes, but even more by empathy. She was ready for the next step, wherever it might lead. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?